Okay, now we're in a stand of Chamaecyparis thyoides in Blackwater River State Park, northern Florida Panhandle. This is the sweet spot for this species. This is specifically subspecies henryi, which is only found down here on the Gulf Coast, and includes the largest specimens of this plant, which is commonly called the Atlantic white cedar, although we are neither on the Atlantic, nor is it white, nor is it a cedar. But that's its name. And it's a pretty dominant component of this forest, where it's also found with slash pine, a slash pine seedling or sapling right here, and it's also found with bald cypress. It likes to have its feet wet. The best trees are right on the bank of the river. Here we're on the floodplain, which is inundated pretty frequently. I just measured the largest one known. It was 106 centimeters DBH. It grows right here in the park, right by the boardwalk, in fact. You don't even have to get your feet wet to look at it. And it has very sparse, sort of filmy foliage. We'll look for a bit of that. See, here's the plant's foliage. I mean, look at that. That is just, it is very thin and insubstantial foliage. Not much to it, held in small planes. Has tiny leaves. There are a few tiny little colored buds on the tip of that. I don't think I can even get it in focus. They're less than 1 millimeter across, and I believe that those are the fertile flowers that are awaiting pollination. The pollination cones are similarly tiny. As a matter of fact, up here I think we have some pollen cones visible at the ends of those branchlets there. This is the Blackwater River itself. This dark mass we're looking at right now is white cedar and extends on down the riverbank. Pretty much a continuous line right here, hard by the river. It excludes most other plants. In back channels on the river floodplain, it also grows with a lot of bald cypress. But here in this area on the riverbank, it's really dominant. Here you can get a closer look at it and see sort of how it holds its foliage. Very low profile tree overall. This one though has some old cones on it from last year. Those little black things, roughly round with a few scales sticking out, those are the cones, and they probably came ripe last fall and now they're black and getting ready to fall off. Now we're just going to review a few still photos. Here's a shot of the riverbank on the Blackwater River. The Chamaecyparis thyoides are relatively short, yellow-green trees down below, and then the forest behind them is dominated by slash pine, Pinus elliottii. This shot shows basically the same thing. The trees on the right side that have fallen over are practically falling into the river. Those are the thyoides. And here's an example of one growing close by the river and out in the open, which is an unusual situation. I had to hunt quite a bit to find this photo. Here's one that has fallen over in an oxbow pond back from the river inside the floodplain. And some of the leaders have acquired apical dominance. This shows the fertile seed cones on a twig, along with some young foliage shoots. This is pollen covering the water of a sag pond in the floodplain. These are seedlings. They are not common in the understory of the forest, but when they do appear, they tend to be profuse, as we see here. Since these are only a few centimeters tall, I assume that they are recent germinants from last year's seed crop. Here's a close-up of one of those seedlings. The lens cap is 6 centimeters, so that's about an 8 or 10 centimeter tall seedling. This shows the dense concentration of roots that the trees produce in the floodplain, which probably explains why I didn't see any of them that were wind-thrown.